Hi, very good morning. Namaskar. A warm welcome to everyone on Elets Tech Summit on 15th April 2022. Here we are going to discuss and deliberate the role, the innovation, the initiatives that EdTech is taking place in the education sector. So, to start with the opening session, opening panel discussion on the topic of EdTech, the future of e-learning in New India, I would like to invite the speakers of the session. So first of all, I would like to invite Mr. Ashish Fernando, founder and the CEO iSchool Connect. Welcome Ashish ji. Welcome to the Elets EdTech Summit. Thank you for accepting our invitation and giving your precious time to summit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Abhishek, for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Thanks Ashish sir. I would like to welcome Mr. Abhimanyu Saxena, co-founder Scalar. Welcome Ashish sir. Welcome to Elets EdTech Summit and thank you for giving your precious time to us.
Yeah,
I
thank you,
would
Abhishek.
like to welcome Ms. Ranjita Raman, CEO Jaro Education. Welcome, Ranjita ma'am. Welcome to Elets EdTech Summit, and thank you for accepting our invitation, ma'am.
Thank you,
And
Abhishek. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
pleasure, ma'am. All our pleasure, ma'am. I would like to welcome Mr. Shekhar Jain, co-founder and CEO Omotech. Welcome, Shekhar ji. Welcome to the Elets EdTech Summit, and thank you for accepting our invitation, sir.
Thank you. It's great to be privileged to be on this panel. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Shekhar sir. And I would like to welcome the speaker and the moderator of the session, Mr. Ravi Gupta, CEO and the founder and editor-in-chief, Elets Technomedia and Digital Learning Magazine. Welcome, Dr. Ravi sir. Well, and thank you for giving your precious time to Elets at Tech Summit.
Thank you, Abhishek. It's a great pleasure to host such an eminent panel. Thank you so much.
So I request all my audience who is watching live on our Avatar platform, if you have any question in your mind regarding the innovation, regarding the initiative, best practices, challenge, tech sector, how it is grooming, please put your question in the Q&A section so that our panelists can take it live. And by not taking much time, I will hand over this virtual dice to Dr. Ravi sir to take it this discussion further proceed. Ravi sir, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Abhishek. Welcome, Ashish. Welcome, Abhimanyu. Welcome, Shekhar, and welcome, Rajita. Thanks for joining in. Before we start the panel, let me welcome all the delegates who have joined on our Avatar platform, which is our 3D virtual platform for hosting virtual sessions. And a brief intro about Elets before we start for our audience who have joined it. Elets is an organization which has been founded in the year 2003, and we have been creating awareness about edtech and overall uh, uh, IT implementation in the education sector for a long, long time. When we started, there was no word called edtech, and we are calling it ICT in education. And we were talking about computers in the classes, teaching like training the teachers, training the students on how to use computers. So from there, in last 15 years, I think the world has changed a lot, and especially in the last 2 years regarding the whole IT adoption in the schools and IT adoptions by students and their parents, and overall global scenario of ICT penetration has dramatically increased. So, without taking much more time, let me request, first of all, our panelists to give an brief 5 minutes, uh, like initial remarks about how do they see the the topic of this session is the future of learning in New India. But I will like modify a little, and I will say that future of e-learning and edtech in New India. So let's let me reach out to first of all Ranjita Raman from Jaro Education to start the panel with her opening remarks. Ranjita, over to you.
So, happy to answer this. And I think the future is going to be very bright. Having said that, the online has taken a front seat after global pandemic. And online learning has got global acceptance right from and right from school education to upskilling and to students and participants who want to do their PhD programs. Yeah. Now, I would like to more emphasize about upskilling and not to K-12. So now, with I see the future as UGC allows university to offer now 40% of the course content online. Yeah, that has enabled edtechs to come into market and prepare the content which is quite relevant and going to help the working professional upskill from here. So right from the quality to the quantity, both will be taken care of. So government has also supported in the new education policy, which has been into execution 2022 for the adoption of EdTech. So which means the government is supporting EdTechs to come forward and bring some quality learning, provide technology support, bring a quick transition in the Indian learning fashion, and provide that support. Now, to supplement what I said, about 93,224 crore was allocated by Government of India for the education budget in the year 21-22, which itself says that EdTech is going to grow further from here on. And the current speed looks to be growing at a speed of 3x year on year. From January until September 2021, Ethics saw a great deals with net worth about 3.35 billion, I'm sorry, which is about more than 3x of amount raised in the year 2019 and 2020, which means that even the private equity and investors are eyeing for this industry, saying it is going to really have a great deal and working for such an organization in this industry is going to helpful. And to support all that I said in the between January 22 to February 2021, the demand of skilled tech workers in India has grew up to 150 to 300%. Yeah, which means that the demand is further going to grow. There are people who are going to upskill as often as thrice a year, yet with short-term and long-term programs, which gives a bright future to the learning curve and also to the edtechs. So I give it over to you, Dr. Rajiv Gupta.
Thank you, Ranjita. You have highlighted the bright future for EdTech, and you have also mentioned that how the government policies are supporting. Uh, Let me request Ashish Fernando from High School Connect that how do you see the last 4 years or 5 years in the EdTech scenario of India, and how are you seeing that uh, uh, now that COVID situation is like improving in India especially, and how is this things will change after this? Will this growth die down or slow down, or what other changes will happen? Your analysis, Ashish.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. I mean, for me, it's always a causation correlation problem that we're dealing with, right? We say, oh, COVID has helped us spike the level of technology usage for education and things of that nature. But for me, it's actually much more fundamental, right? If I have to think of it, when I was in eighth grade is when I first touched a computer, right? Today, even before a kid goes to school, they have access to internet, they have access to laptops and computers and things of that nature. So for me, actually, it's not a 4 year progress. It's more than a decade where it's a lot more than just saying COVID has shown us that edtech is growing. It's actually much more simpler, right? It's things like access to the internet. It's things like access to a computer device, a device that can help in learning. And then it's access to jobs, access to careers, access to student success. It's kind of all coming together. And I think last 4 years, more than last 4 years, I think the last 2 years actually are very pivotal for edtech in India. And that's especially because suddenly now you have this influx of foreign funding. You have influx of people wanting to start companies, taking the risk and saying, I want to do something, develop something, build a startup. and just that whole boom of startup culture in India, along with all the funding, plus this access to money, to capital, but also access to just information. It's amazing, right? For me, I see that as a more pivotal moment for India. I mean, I was just looking at the stats. To be very honest, I didn't prepare much for this, right? But I was just looking at simple stats, and I'm very happy to see that out of 6 lakh villages in India, 5.5 lakh villages by last year have access to at least 3G data. That's great. There's about 25, 30,000 villages that are left to get access, and the hope is by 2024 they will also have access. So now when you put that access along with the need for a student who's in a village somewhere who didn't have access to the internet, who didn't have access to platforms like Ranjita and Abhimanyu and others are building, uh, it was hard to get knowledge, get prepared for jobs, get prepared for career success. So for me, I see it more as an awakening. COVID is just, I think it's a good catalyst, but it's, I would say, not the actual cause for us to suddenly say now edtech, edtech is in town, edtech is booming. So it's much broader than that. That's what I would say.
Sure. Ashish, so thanks for highlighting this point that COVID was pivotal for the growth of like tech in India. And you have talked about the IT penetration, around 5.5 lakh villages, which is itself is a huge number. Uh, uh, Let me request Shekhar Jan to give your views about that. What happens to EdTech post COVID? Uh, like, are you going to see this momentum sustain, or is it going to slow down, or are there are still opportunities which are untapped? Shekhar.
Sure. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. So I think Ashish spoke a little bit about how the edtech industry has actually grown over the last couple of years, and the last 2 years, it's accelerated probably 10 times faster than what we imagined it to. Typically in the K-12 upskilling job market, I think it's made a pivotal change in the way that education is looked at. I think four important facets have come out. It's improved the infrastructure in schools as well as in colleges. It's aided teachers to become a little bit more technology savvy and use technology tools now to deliver training and content. Content itself has got a lot more digitized, and to the point that was made earlier, it's now accessible to a lot more schools, and therefore delivery becomes more standard across India, even in the remote villages, whichever has access to even a 3G or a 4G connection also. And I think the most important piece that's come out of it, not only the mainstream education, but also vocational education has picked up significantly. And I think that's kind of given a real boost to the education market. I think while we look at all of this, there is still that entire space of when does edutech actually run out of steam, and I think we see a little bit of it happening as the COVID kind of slows down. We see that the hybrid model is now here to stay. We see more people going the offline and the online. I clearly see K-12 specifically moving into the hybrid model over the next couple of months to cater to both online as well as offline schooling. Vocational courses are being taken up in a big way, both in an online and offline manner. We also see that the government schools specifically, we have about 1.5 million schools in India, of which 50% is almost the government schools. And we see the government schools now trying to kind of rake up their technology quotient for them to be able to get access to some of this content and some of this delivery models itself. And one thing that's good about that is that they're not looking at it only being trainer led. They're looking at it from an online perspective, which is more content led. So that means there's a little bit more of standardization of content, whether you're sitting in Satara or whether you're sitting in some remote school in south of Bangalore, right? So I think that standardization really helps. I think one thing that edutech companies will need to take care of is how to balance the two between online and offline, and that's going to be very critical. K-12 is very sensitive to that, and that's going to be one challenge. The second challenge that I see is that while we are looking at e-learning and content online and all of that, we are now starting to talk about a new theory which is known as the metaverse. And you already see not only the banking companies move into that, but you also see now technology companies, education companies move into the metaverse. So this is a little bit of a challenge because seeing so much of digital growth happen so fast, sometimes probably raises an issue. Are the students, is the audience actually ready for that kind of a growth when the infrastructure is not kind of supporting that? So I think that's going to be one. The second challenge is going to be that we're going to see is even in the education sector, we're actually going to see a lot of consolidation. So similar platforms coming together, similar delivery models coming together, people kind of coming together to basically cater to either schools and colleges, because then becomes a little bit more comprehensive offering. Price wars, I see all of those actually coming out as an outcome from over the next 1 year. I clearly see this as a big benefit as well as a bane to the education sector. Thank you. Over to you. Back to you, Dr. Ravi.
Fantastic inputs, Shekhar, and thanks for highlighting these challenges of the hybrid model, which will be immense, and especially in the school education sector. And let me request Abhimanyu Saxena from Scale Up that what are your lessons from this last 2 years of COVID in terms of tech adoptions, and how are these learnings like going to help you in like scaling your business post COVID?
Right, right. So, Dr. Ravi, I would build upon what Ashish was also mentioning, that the growth of edtech, while it does look like at the first level that uh, pandemic accelerated that, but there's a very interesting parallel that I can draw, that if we look at the growth of work from home as well. Uh, so probably there were actually much better ways to learn and work, but because of our continued practices, it is very hard. So, for example, back in 2018, if you asked any company founder, any CEO, any executive, that would you give work from home to your entire team, everyone would say, no, how can that work? It's impossible, right? Uh, Pandemic just pushed us to do things which were actually better. Work from home or hybrid work environment is actually just better. It's not that it is gonna work because pandemic, or if pandemic goes away, people are going to all go back to office. No, it's not going to happen. Same with the edtech, like learning remotely, learning virtually, in a lot of ways is actually better than having to go to a physical classroom and sit there and learn. I can talk about some of the variables there. If, let's say, if I start a physical education institute in Bangalore or in Delhi, or let's say even in San Francisco, that people who can teach are going to be limited to the people who can be at that physical location, right? But internet, when it is virtual classroom, it removes all the geographical boundaries. I can make sure that every single teacher, every single mentor, in a virtual platform is the best person in the field from the world, not someone who was present in that geographical location, right? And that tells us that if it is so much better, if it is if it like, if I were to, let's say, create a virtual university like in Stanford, which was entirely on the cloud or in the metaverse. Now, metaverse, what is metaverse? Shekhar was talking about metaverse. I will break it into two parts. Of course, metaverse is kind of a marketing word these days as well. We can say it's the virtual reality way to interact with others. But is that metaverse? Probably for last 10 years we have been living in metaverse already. Probably we are speaking to each other in the metaverse right now. It might be on a two-dimensional screen instead of the three-dimensional VR headset, but this still is metaverse, right? Now, if we imagine that if there's a university which exists on the cloud, a full-fledged Stanford quality university which exists on the internet, and what is most important part of universities, and when we talk about edtech, often we only feel that recorded lectures or notes on a portal is edtech. It's not. That is probably, I break education into two parts. There are books and libraries, for example, right? Recorded lectures, material to read on internet is at best replacement for a book or library, right? But the biggest educational data, learning data, is created not just by the books, but by the universities. And what is different about universities? The different thing about universities is primarily community, the learning environment that exists in that geographical location, right? The kind of network that people create there, the kind of mentorship, guidance, and camaraderie that gets created there. Now, the next phase of edtech is going to be creating those environments online. And hence, I believe that in future, hybrid mode, of course, works. But again, we need to double click on that. In what parts do we need, human to human interactions or in person interactions? Is it necessary that, say, for 50 or 60% of the classes should be happening in a brick and mortar room instead of virtually? I guess not. Why is it necessary? But at the same time, I might say that, all the classes can happen online, but people who are in the class, they should have some way to interact with each other, have a common group study rooms, or maybe live in a hostel together and have that knowledge osmosis happening for them, right? So what I believe is that, future of education, future of higher education is entirely online. It is going to be driven very much uh, by the jobs and outcomes than just the degree. For example, if we see today, almost top five tech companies, including Google, Facebook, Tesla, Amazon, already say that they do not require a degree uh, to hire people in their tech teams. So future of education is going to be very skill driven rather than certification or degree driven, and it is going to be massively online, massively virtual. It can be hybrid, of course. We might have those physical elements to it as well to further boost the learning, but majority of it will be tech driven education.
Sure. When thanks for highlighting this importance of the virtual, and virtual removes this like issue of geography that in a particular city that teacher has to go and live. That is the most important point. And I am aware of, like, in fact, many of the people, uh, some of my even relatives are actually teaching online as a teacher on various platforms. So it's a, and like they're living in remote areas where they did not have access to uh, good institutions to teach. So it has like created a lot of employment opportunities. So let me ask Ranjita, if you can like highlight briefly that in last 2 years especially, any what like surprised you, like you were surprised by like something like adoption of IT or adoption of like something else, or the outcomes you got, like each of the panelists, I would wish to like highlight one biggest like surprise you got, one or two, Ranjita. Yeah, please
Yes,
unmute.
I'm happy to answer that. Quickly, as you said, for last 2 years that I have to talk about, I've been associated with EdTech for about 14 years now, and I have seen the growth chart of EdTech since the time I started working for it and now where it is. So if way back in the year 2009 and 10, I had seen that the acceptance of online was very, very poor. This internet penetration was there, at least in metros, but yeah, the acceptance of online learning was just very poor. So like I talk about school education, parents were very clear that no, online education is not going to support children to develop, because I think for a child it is just not about development of learning, it's about developing of their personality, from the learning from the ecosystem, learning from culture, behavior, everything is important, in which they felt the school is, and the brick and mortar model is only going to be survival. Now, so I'm drawing the context, and post-COVID acceptance went to another level when the Ivy League institutions also started teaching online, and everybody understood the impact of online and how it is going to save the time, give a better delivery, uh, get a quality participant, get a quality student to learn with. In on the other context of higher education, last 2 years had been very critical. So if I say in the year till the year 18 and 19, I have seen that people were very rigid about doing a degree program than an upskilling program, because skill need was limited. Acceptance of online learning degrees, diplomas, or any upskilling certification in the corporates was not at large, yeah, which we've seen post pandemic. when organization, Abhimanyu said that a lot of organization moved to bring it to a hybrid employment model and work from home as a culture. Employers also understood that there is a high potential that is lying in online learning, and that's when the acceptance of online degree improved. But if answering to the exact question you had, the one change that I have seen is the acceptance of certification program, which is a short term, but from transition to a degree program to a short term skill based program has raised to another level. And now instead of going for a long route, people want to take up those short, small courses, want to upskill, be industry relevant, and that's the biggest change that I have been noticing in past 2 years.
Very important point you have highlighted, Anita. Thanks for that. Uh, Let me request Shekhar, like, if you have any last 2 years biggest surprises or biggest learnings, you want to highlight one of that, Shekhar.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the biggest changes that have come through is that, and this is specifically true for K-12, is that we never realized that there was a lot of challenge within the institutions themselves to be able to teach things or adopt technology. And I think we've seen a huge among us growth of technology in schools, where many of them have actually upgraded their entire infrastructure now to kind of cater to both hybrid, both online as well as offline learning, and have upgraded the teachers significantly. I think there's been a real push from even conservative teaching methodology to new methods of teaching, and it's become a lot more creative. The content has got a lot more richer. There is a new way in which teachers are actually teaching a lot of the mainstream content, and I think that's been a significant shift in schools, and has been a very positive outcome from this.
Fantastic input, Shekhar. I think I remember one of the like school owners like talking in our school summits which we organized, and that principal was like saying that for last 15 years I have been trying to implement IT in my school, and I have been like always failed because teachers used to resist. They said we can't learn all this. And after this lockdown happened, in like 1 month time, they were all teaching on Zoom or Google or something else, Microsoft Teams. Like it took 1 month, and they said what I could not do in 15 months, it was achieved by COVID in a single month. So I think that's what I think the huge changes have happened. The skills of the teachers itself in last 2 years. And thanks for highlighting. Uh, Let me request Ashish your learnings or any important observations from last 2 years. Ashish.
Yeah, sure. For me, I have discovered a whole new um, mindset in humans that I thought was never existent. I'll just give you a little stat from what we do. Right at iSchool Connect, we've touched almost 3 million students last year, and we work only in international education. So when the pandemic hit and they said there's going to be no flights out of India and nobody's traveling, we said that's it, this is time for our business to go belly up. But the remarkable thing is that even though international travel stopped and no consulate was giving visas, 2021 is actually at 130% of student numbers from 2019 pre-pandemic, right? Even we are still not out of the pandemic, but international student numbers have gone up. Even though US consulates are not open, they are giving visas, but it's like literally 10 months, right? Waiting for getting a visa. How is that happening? What that has actually told me is that no matter what happens, the need to learn and to grow is still there in students and parents, right? The pandemic has hit, but you still don't want your kids sitting at home doing nothing, right? They need to study, and even a lot of students, the mindset just shifted so rapidly. Usually about 70% of our students want to go study in America, mainly because it's America, right? Not because Harvard or MIT is giving them a better education than maybe I don't know. Like today, I feel the IITs have a lot more to offer, but that's a different time to debate on, right? But the point that I want that I want to bring forward is that's what I've learned is the act of learning will keep continuing. And Abhimanyu kind of hinted at this, that it's shifting more to online, but it'll probably be more hybrid. I totally agree with that. I think with companies like Google and others now saying, hey, we just want people who can learn faster, who have the right skill set. We don't really care if it shows on paper that you have masters in computer science with a background in AI. It doesn't matter, right? If you can build a machine learning model and you're 12 years old and you can legally work, you can work, right? That's the mindset. So I'm really seeing this rapid shift. So even for us, we deal with international education. Even for us, when we talk to students, when we talk to parents, we've actually shifted our mindset, right? We are now the balance was more towards, oh, okay, what's the best place for you to learn? South of the United States, because there's no snow, it's warm, it's like India, and you can have a little bit of fun. To more of, how can you get the quality education to get that job at Google? How can you upskill yourself with some complementary education, right? Because institutions are usually slightly slower to adopt than an online tech company, right? And that's just the truth we have to all deal with, and that's for the right reason, right? I mean, they have a staff, they have professors who need to be upskilled. There's a lot of that. So just augmenting a traditional education with online ways of upskilling is now the new paradigm shift. So that's where even when we talk to students, our counseling teams, they're always focused on that. Is, hey, just don't think that once you get an admit from a university, done, that's it, now it's time to go party and you'll somehow graduate. No, it's not that anymore, right? It's about skills. It's about getting the right skill set, not just a computer science degree, but on top of that, what's that additional piece, be it cloud, be it blockchain, now metaverse, web3, you name it. It's all new. It's not every institution teaches those things, right? But the industry needs those things. Just we face a lot of issues hiring cloud engineers. Right? We work on Google Cloud, and we're dishing out thousands and thousands of computer science graduates in India. But it's really hard to get someone who knows Google Cloud. Why? Right? That's kind of where I've learned in the last 2 years that society is shifting a little bit, but there's still a long way to go, right? And we'll get there.
Sure. So I think that Ashish, you highlighted that people are looking at outcomes, that what we exactly need out of education, rather than the campus and the fun and all that. But you need the real outcome, the real meat. People have started like targeting that. Great. People are asking me questions here, so some are here. So let me ask Abhimanyu that someone is here. I asked that how has the Indian market become open to edtech? So I think it's a broad question, but it's still an important question that the edtech market has got ignited because of this pandemic. So how are you like seeing this opening up, or something like a liberalization time of edtech has happened?
Right.
So
Right.
how are you like seeing the next 5 years of edtech in terms of revenues, in terms of employment, in terms of number of schools or colleges it will touch, stuff like that? If you have some data, if you can highlight.
Right. Of course, while edtech is a pretty broad term, I will probably focus on the sub-segment that we operate in, which is job driven or industry driven higher education, right? So at Scalar, what we focus on is that, having these very industry focused program where there is a good, like we optimize for that, you learn and then you have skills that top employers are looking for, so that you can get a high paying and a high quality job. Now, what have led to the growth of it? Now there are multiple tailwinds that we say, right? It's like favorable winds in which the growth could grow faster. There are multiple variables to that. Now, to begin with, economically, India, of course, is a developing country, right? Why do, like in India we have seen in last decade or even in last 2 decades, massive number of people going for test prep, right? Preparing for IIT, JEE or medical entrance exams. If I ask, why do people do that? Is my goal? I might say, someone might say that, my goal is going into a top institute. I want to go and study at IIT. That's why I'm preparing so much for that. But when you double click on that, it's not true. When you ask people that, when you have, let's say you got selected into, an entrance exam, how do you pick the college? Majority of the time, and like we have done certain surveys on that as well, the answer is the college where the placements are best. People are putting in all that hard work to get a high paying job in a reputed organization. Like we are, and it's obvious in a growing economy, like higher education, getting a high quality job is the only way to transition from a lower middle class or middle class to probably upper middle class, or have a better life, or to be able to migrate outside, right? Now what happened during the pandemic is that because of the massive amount of influx of capital investment, technology taking over, of course, pandemic forced everyone to use technology across the segment, be it daily groceries, be it companies having to set up work from home environments, be it education, like across the field, uh, and which created massive number of tech jobs as well, right? And if there are massive number of tech jobs but not enough skilled people, and now it is clear to a large number of people that if I just learn these things, I can double my salary, I can triple my salary. Sometimes I can even start earning 4 times than what I earn right now. And when there is such a focused program that probably I do not even need to go somewhere, I can just sit at my home, take out 2-3 hours every day for maybe 6 months, 9 months, and I can start earning 4x. That is a massive tailwind. That's a massive value, right? Second is also that while even before pandemic, we were always in a virtual instruction mode because we realized the potential of how better an online education ecosystem might be. But back then, still there would be some people who would ask us that, do you have a physical center where I can come and study? And we would say, no, we don't have that. But after pandemic, this question itself got removed, right? The same as what I was saying earlier, that before pandemic, we were not willing to say that work from home can be efficient. Today, everyone does that, right? Same as before pandemic, there was a subset who would not be able to just absorb this because we never learned efficiently online, right? So there were a small subset who would believe that unless I go to a physical coaching center, a classroom, study there, I will not be able to learn. But pandemic kind of showed us. So these are the two primary tailwinds that I see, at least in our segment. But both of them have been pretty powerful.
So here, Manu has highlighted an important point that the whole importance of the physical center, like that question itself has got erased, and I think it's a big change which has happened after COVID, and so the people here are asking some specific questions. So I'm not sure who will be who of you will be prepared to answer any of them. But if I Ranjita, are you able to see questions on your screen
I
right?
can. Yes, yes.
So
Yes.
you want to pick any of them which looks
I think,
relevant to you?
yes, I think on UGC guidelines, I can also speak about franchisee arrangement for the edtech. So I would start with the UGC guidelines. So the question is UGC issues guideline to pursue two courses together. What your views on this is what is asked. So when I look at it as a very positive move of UGC, which has enabled students to take the independence of what they want to learn at what pace they want to learn, and doing two programs at a time, I think it's a great move where a student can choose one program which is classroom based and another virtual. Reason also because industries are spinning, there is a need for people to upskill or learn various skills before they get into their jobs. And while people have sufficient time at the early age of their career, it is important that they learn fast and do multiple things together so they're industry ready, are able to fetch better jobs and able to grow in the career. And I think which is the right move. In other sense, I also feel that this move is going to support universities and institutions also at large, where they can increase the program offerings for their existing participants. And as spoken about our as spoken by our esteemed panelists, that a hybrid model adaptation by these universities and institutions would also be quite helpful, which of course schools at a large has been able to do. This increase in the program portfolio will also enable their faculties, teachers to come up with the different ideas, suggestions, and then look at the learning curve of student, and it's going to be helpful at large. Is what my understanding is. Moving to another question, which says that UGC IICT won against franchisee agreement between colleges and tech companies. I think yes, this came into action in the month of January 2022, and after that, I think UGC has revisited this decision and has come up with the new guidelines for edtech. This is basically came to an action where a lot of edtech. So as the industry is moving and the competition is also increasing with the new entrants in the industry, I think aggressive marketing is which took a toll of and where the student complaint raised, and UGC felt that this aggressive marketing has led to a lot of complaint and dissatisfaction among student and parent, is where they came up with this rule of not having edtech arrangement with any of the franchisee. However, later they revisited the decision, as I said, and has allowed, as I said initially, that 40% of the content can be delivered by edtech now, and government feels that edtech is going to play a vital role in bridging the gap of technology intervention in learning, and that's when they have allowed these franchisee arrangements for now. So I think I could answer both the questions which are there and relevant to me.
Sure. Um, Thank you, Ranjita. I think you have highlighted and answered these questions, which are very, very important. Someone has asked that so much money is being invested in EdTech, but has this positively affected student outcomes? So I think there is still doubt in the people's mind that is it still benefiting. So, Daj, any of you want to like take up this question and actually answer with some data or facts?
I can
Sure.
maybe talk about
Abhimanyu, please.
it. So, two parts to it. First is that one beauty of capitalistic system is that it's a self-correcting system, right? In between, there might be certain things. Let's say there might be aggressive marketing done by some companies, aggressive sales, etc., and some people might feel, bad about it. But in the longer term, only the companies, only the providers who are creating a delta to the consumer, only they will survive. Because the history is that no private company which is adding value for the consumer can survive in the long run, right? There's no reason because there is no monopoly they have. There is no governmental rule which is enabling them than anyone else. That if they are not, providing value, some other player will come in the market, raise more funds, replace them, right? So that being said, the second part backed by data that what value edtech have added, right? Now, how can we measure? Let's first talk about that. What should be the right measurement that whether an education company is really adding value to the ecosystem or not, right? So if I talk about K-12, etc., it's a little harder because if a kid is in fifth year or fifth class of school, how are you going to say, like, you will have to wait at least 10 years before you can say that this person is now more impactful than others, right? However, I think we are fortunate enough to be in a segment where this impact cycle could be shorter, right? If someone, let's say a 24-year-old or 28-year-old comes and joins us, the person most likely would also be employed earlier, and after the course they would be earning some X amount before, they would be earning some Y amount before, after the course, right? um, and then it is very easy to measure, like I think the open market is always the best judge. that if someone was earning, let's say, 5 lakhs a year before joining the program, and across, let's say, 5,000 data points after the program, if on an average people start earning 15 lakhs, no, in the industry, in the open market, no one is going to pay them more if they are not better skilled. And if you see this delta, this five, someone earning 5 lakhs to 15 lakhs, this 10 lakhs is direct addition to the country's GDP, right? uh, Now, at least in our context, for example, recently we got a assessment done by KPMG about the career outcomes of people who graduated from Scalar, right? And like on Scalar website, it might be available or it might be put in some days. uh, but I think audience can download it and see it, that the net GDP contribution itself, and it's pretty obvious that if people are becoming more capable to deliver for the industry needs, they're going to start earning more. It is creating more employment, it is adding to the GDP, right? So I think impact is pretty obvious. Education is the first step to grow an economy. Abundance of talent is the necessity. It's the basic infrastructure needed for the growth of any nation as well, right? So it's obvious that I think in every single education company, in one way or other, adding massive value to the country. While of course one might argue that they raised so many $1 million, what did they do? But net, they are definitely not doing anything negative. They are definitely adding positive value to the ecosystem.
Sure.
Dr. Ravi, if you permit me,
Yeah,
if I can
sure.
add something to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I think there are two perspectives on this. I think one perspective is clearly in the upskilling to job market kind of scenario, where the turnaround time in terms of application could be measured not only by ways of seeing how much is the subscription, but more importantly, looking at a very critical metric known as completion, course completion. And I think as we see a lot of the edtechs moving in that space, the subscription numbers are pretty high, which actually shows that the cost of doing a course has come down significantly and has made more accessible to people to actually access and do those courses. However, what's suffering is the metric of course completion, primarily because it's so individually driven by their own by their own self determination or by their own motivation levels, that's one metric that the edtech companies need to be careful about. The second thing is that when you look at the K-12 segment, over there, the online virtual training continues to kind of be a little bit behind, because it's very difficult to actually say if those children who are more hands-on, more physical in that sense, in terms of the touch and feel and having access to their five senses, the learning slows down significantly. So over there, probably the physical education makes a lot more sense in terms of the validity and adoption for children to grow their overall personality, character, and so on and so forth, which what traditional schools have always worked with. So I think impact in the two sectors is very, very different, but each one has their advantages as well as significant disadvantages too.
Sure. Ashish, over to you, and you can see the whole range of questions and people have asked, yeah, the whole spectrum of it. Like, you want to pick up something and say something?
Sure. I mean, yeah, for me, I guess the most relevant one is again investments in edtech, and I've always, from the time I came to the US, I got my education, and now we launched the company in India, with the reason to give back, and we have about 250 people working in India. The one thing that I've always felt is that innovation and research always happens first in institutions. Researchers at institutions are the ones who develop patents, who develop new technology. But higher ed, education in general, is the last space or the last industry where it actually gets implemented. Right, so it gets created at institution, and then it goes and they apply it to the automobile industry. They apply it to banking and finance, and it never gets applied to education. And now we are actually shifting. Right now, a lot of technology is coming back to help education, and it's a cyclic process. I think a couple of our panelists also mentioned that now it's creating more jobs. It's creating all of this research that's getting deployed back into education. It's beautiful. It's beautiful for me to now see that, when we talk about machine learning and AI, we were always talking about how can we optimize flight paths for Air India, to make the most money for them, right? Nobody talked about how do I build an AI tutor, right? Now universities and institutions are building AI tutors. There is a machine learning algorithm that's looking at every student in a unique way to say, what is your learning delta? What do you need to learn specifically for your own personal need to get you to that point where you can now get employed at a Google and Amazon? It's beautiful to see all this, capitalism now focusing on the edtech sector, and it's actually helping institutions get better. It's helping students get better. To Abhimanyu's point, it's creating more jobs in the edtech sector. I think about 100,000 jobs were created in just the last 6 months. It's that's what I feel about it, and it's exciting for us startup founders and institutions as well, right? To see that now people are looking at this sector. So that's where I would end that.
Fantastic. So uh, we are like towards the end of this session. We only have 4 minutes left. So I will request each of the speakers here to just give one line summary of like what is the most challenging aspect of future of edtech in the next 3 years in India. Ranjita, over to you.
Challenging would be adoption of quality content. Challenges would be to fight with the competition. Challenges would be to adapt the right, ensure that you are looking at the right learning curve of the participants.
Sure. Thank you, Ranjita. Shekhar, over to you.
Yeah, I would probably say access to content by many users. To quality educators. While we look at the content, we also need quality educators to deliver that content, which is a little bit lacking right now, and I see a lot of potential in this space. And third one is our infrastructure, which is a delivery model, which needs to be a little bit more robust. It needs to be a much more scalable. If anyone needs to get to the 1.5 million schools, then the infrastructure that we're talking about is a horrendous infrastructure in just terms of implementation itself. So these are going to be the three big challenges for us.
Great, Shekhar. Thank you. And Abhimanyu, over to you.
Yeah, I think my take is a little different from what panelists have. What I feel is that for online education to survive and thrive and potentially even reinvent how humans have learned in last maybe 1,000 to 2,000 years, the most critical parameter would be being able to crack engagement and adherence. uh, right? That whether someone who joins the program, like right now, we all know that MOOC's completion rate is stand at less than 4%, right? Even the edtechs who claim to have high adherence and engagement, they would say that, wow, we have 25% adherence. But when a kid goes to school, 100% finish the class, right? 100% go all the way till the end exam and go to the next class. So I think cracking that adherence and engagement, making so engaging virtual learning experiences that kids keep turning up every single day for years and years to it, I think that is the most critical and most important part.
Fantastic, Abhimanyu. Thank you. Ashish, you have the last word of this session. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, if I had to sum it up based on where I see the world moving, for me, it's all about gamification. I think it over the last, if you look at the last 20 years, our attention span as humans has gone down to less than a goldfish, right? So now for learners, it's important to keep them engaged and to keep them continuing that process of learning. So it's all about like Web3 and metaverses, and all of these are kind of creating that whole gamified environment. I think that is definitely for me the future of where online learning is going.
Okay, fantastic. So we will close this session here, and I think Ashish, this is a point about gamification is very, very important. I think the whole meta discussion is also about somewhere about around virtual reality, which is uh, coming up in a big way. So thank you, Ranjita. Thank you, Shekhar. Thank you, Abhimanyu. Thank you, Ashish. And we have Abhishek here, who will give the closing remarks. Abhishek.
Thank you, Ravi sir, for this wonderful moderation. And we have more than 17 questions more in our Q&A segment. So we will send these questions to our panelists. If it seems worthy, we can revert on email as well. And I request all my audience, you can follow our speakers on their social handles as well. And you can follow Digital Learning Magazine and Let's Talk Technomedia for more updates regarding the text, regarding the innovation in education. So by this, I will ask Deepak to share the token of appreciation from the EdTech Summit. This speaker certificate is presented to Mr. Ashish Fernando, founder and CEO iSchool Connect. Thank you, Ashish sir. Thank you very much for giving your precious time to us.
Thank you so much.
Speaker certificate is presented to Mr. Shekhar Jain, co-founder and CEO Omotech. Thank you, Shekhar ji. Thank you very much for being present at Elets EdTech Summit.
Thank you.
To Mr. Abhimanyu Saxena, co-founder Stellar. Thank you, Abhimanyu sir. Thank you very much for giving your time to Let's Attack Summit and being a speaker at this summit. And speaker
Thank you
certificate
so
is
much.
presented to Ranjita Raman, CEO Jaro Education. Thank you, Ranjita ma'am. Thank you very much for coming to Let's Attack Summit and sharing your valuable inputs to us.
Thank
So
you,
by
Abhishek.
Thank you, Ranjita ma'am. So by this, I thanks all my esteemed panelists for giving your precious time to us, and I request all my audience to please stay back for our next session, that is with the Gupshup exclusive session. So we will move on to the further session. Thank you, audience. Thank you, panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Namaskar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.